Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Quinney, and this is the Flames Faceoff brought to you by the Hockey Writers. This is a weekly show where we bring together our best writers in the Calgary Flames writing pool, and we discuss all things Flames. Now, to make sure you don't miss an episode, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. You can like this video on YouTube and Facebook. And do be sure to share the program with your fellow Calgary Flames fans. And don't forget to check out some of the great hockey content that we have here at thehockeywriters.com. So with that, let's get going. I'd like to introduce the panel. We have with us Colton Pankiw. Welcome, Colton.
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
Really good. And Greg Tysowski. Greg, nice to see you. Fresh in from the golf course.
Yes. I think I shot an 89. So anything under 90, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Hey, I'm happy when I break 100. I can't believe I just confessed that on on the World Wide Web. Anyway, full marks for honesty, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. Well, let's. There was some big news actually. Who says nothing happens in the summertime in the hockey world if you're not in the playoffs? We had an announcement this week that Kirk Muller was appointed associate coach in Calgary. And for those who don't know, I mean, he's a well-known commodity in the league, but he was assistant coach with the Canadiens from 2006 to 2011. He was then the head coach for the Carolina Hurricanes for 3 seasons. Then he went to St. Louis for a couple of years as assistant coach. And then back to the Habs. He was let go earlier this year with Claude Julien and others. And so Thursday, I think it was, the announcement came up, hey, he's associate coach in Calgary. So I wanted to get your take, gentlemen, on that. Why was he brought in? What's your take? What do you think it means? Colton, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's just as far as like bringing in an assistant coach goes. Obviously, it's a well-known name. Like you said, he's been around for a long time, has tons of experience, and had a really long playing career too. I didn't realize. I guess maybe just being a bit younger, I hadn't really paid attention to him as a player. But he's played almost 1,400 games, I think, in the league. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like he's been around for a long time, so a lot of experience to bring in for some of the, well, I guess some of the younger guys, just all the Flames players, really. I think just having that experience there as an assistant coach is never a bad thing. So I think it's a good hire.
Greg, what's your take on the appointment? What's it mean?
I'm not surprised because most coaches, like most GMs, when they come in, they like to get their own coach in there, and like most head coaches like to have their own staff. So he inherited the staff, and it's no knock against Martin Jelena. He has been kind of shuffled around, but most coaches want their own guys, and there really was no past connection between these two. So I was kind of surprised it was Kirk Muller, and not some past assistant that Daryl Sutter has used in the past. But I think it's a great plan. Some people are talking that this could be a built-in succession plan because of this experience that Kirk Muller has, head coaching and being an assistant coach in the NHL. He could definitely be someone who could take the reins from Daryl Sutter. Daryl Sutter is on contract for 2 more years after this. And I don't know how much longer he wants to be a head coach in this league. He says he has unfinished business, but if he can't get it done in Calgary in the next couple of years, I can see Kirk Muller being the heir apparent in Calgary, and I, for one, think it's a good move. I think he's a good choice.
Yeah. I mean, he's used to working with veteran coaches. He's worked with Claude Julien and then Ken Hitchcock, and from what I've read from the pundits, he agrees with the Sutter style of play. He's a lot of experience. He's won a cup. He knows how to do that, as does Sutter, but and there's probably a fit between he and Sutter. Here's what I'm wondering, though. When I first read the announcement, I thought, he's a personable guy, and people like him. I'm wondering if you guys think he could be a buffer between Sutter with his Bruce style, let's say, and the rest of the players like Valimaki, some of the youngsters. Colton, what are your thoughts on that? Is that I guess an added benefit of bringing him in?
Yeah, I think that's kind of lots of times with an assistant coach, especially like Sutter, like you said, he's more of an old school guy. So I think lots of times the assistant coaches are more personable, like you said, and then just again having that playing experience, I think, is something that guys too, I think, respect a lot. They kind of it's easier to trust what's being said to you if it's a guy that's kind of walked the walk before. So yeah, I think it'll be a good fit for them. I think, like you said too, like Hitchcock, I know is a guy that was known for being really tough on his players. So I think that's kind of the same thing with Sutter. So bringing a guy like that in, I think will, yeah, kind of just not take the pressure off, but maybe just a better relationship for someone to talk to there.
Yeah. Greg, do you agree? Do you think that was the thing that was going through, one of the things going through Treliving's mind?
I think that's a good theory anyways, like having the good cop, bad cop kind of thing, in your head coaching staff, I think it's never a bad thing to have someone on there who players can maybe feel comfortable with talking to, not that they don't feel comfortable talking to Daryl Sutter, because it's surprising when the former players and some current players, they ask about him and they say that he's can be quite personable, and he'll always ask you about how your mother's doing and stuff like that. But I think that is a factor in all this, that maybe, he's a counterbalance to the gruff style of Daryl Sutter. So like I say, let's see how this goes. Maybe this will be one of the missing pieces to why this team can't seem to click. And maybe this coming season will prove everybody right that this is a good move for the team.
Yeah. Well, not only I think could he be valuable in dealing with the younger players, but he may be able to turn Monahan around, put him back on track. Same thing with Tkachuk. So yeah, we'll see. Speaking of the established players, the big guns, I wanted to switch gears here and talk about Johnny Gaudreau. I think it's a name that's going to pop up between now and the 28th of July as one of the stars in the league that could be traded. He'll be getting a lot of coverage, not only in Calgary, but across the league. We've got 6 weeks to go now between today and the 28th of July. And I think it's fair to say the Flames will need to make a decision on whether to extend his contract or trade him. Those are the two stark choices. Because if they get to trade discussions after the 28th, then essentially what he has is a 26-team no trade list. There's only 5 teams that he'll go to. And so I'm wondering what your take is, if it looks like you can't get a deal done, and I'd be surprised if they didn't have an inkling of that now, do you trade him? At what point do you have to make that decision? Thoughts, Colton, or is that the calculus now with the team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah. I think if the two sides are really apart on a deal, then I don't think it makes sense to hold on to them. Like you said, that if the no trade kicks in, then that really kind of limits their options. So I think if they aren't able to agree on something, then that makes sense. But it's interesting because you hear all these rumors that they're going to make a big change this offseason. So you think that maybe he'd be the guy, but just from what he said at the end of the year, and I just am getting the vibe that they're wanting to bring him back. So I think that there's a better chance that an extension gets signed than a trade happens. But like you said, if they're ways away, then yeah, I think they'd be best to make a trade in the next bit here.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Greg? Have we got that right? Is it decision time now? Either trade him or re-sign him, and if you're going to do either, you got to do it now. Is that your take, or?
Yeah, I think so, because I think that only 5 teams is very limiting to what your options are, and this would have to be like they call it a hockey trade. Like you have to get someone back to replace the offense and replace Johnny Gaudreau. And I don't know if you really can. It's difficult to really pull off these trades. And I don't think prospects and picks is something they could really need. I think they're trying to retool here and trying to win now, I think. So I think the best option is try and sign this guy. And I was reading online some these contract estimators, and there was one website which suggested that you could possibly sign him for like 8 million, 8.5 million per season, based on how he's been doing the last couple of seasons. And I think if you could get him for that, that would be the best thing this team could do. And, I was kind of looking at some of the top players, like they were talking about the MVP nominations of McDavid and Matthews and in Colorado. All of those guys are draft picks, and they weren't guys that they traded for to get, and so I think it's really hard to get, someone, a 1-for-1 deal that's going to make everybody happy. And I think the best plan is to sign this guy. And, I think he actually wants to be here. I believe him. I take him at face value. So if we get a deal done, that's, I think, the Flames' best option when it comes to Johnny Gaudreau.
Well, let's go with that assumption. Let's say they're the best thing, as you suggest, Greg, is to keep them, and they're close to that. I'm curious, what does the new contract look like, especially with respect to term? Colton, he's what is he, 29 now, I believe. If you sign him to 5 years, he's 35, and then you got to. Well, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? What term would you sign him to?
I think he's still only 27, turning 28 this year. I could be wrong, because he's born in 93, I know. But I think if they're giving him an extension, I think he probably would want to go max deal, which, I mean, since he's with the Flames still, that would be an 8-year. Whether or not, I know. So that's where it gets tough. But as far as dollars, I think kind of where Greg said, it's so tough to predict contracts right now just because of the flat cap. Like, it's tough to know what anyone's true value is right now. But I think if they could get him at that 8 million a year range, I think that would be a pretty fair contract based off how he's played throughout his entire career as a Flame.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, Greg, pick up on that. What about term? 8 years?
Well, I know Johnny Gaudreau would be, over the moon to get 8 years, but the Flames, are going to do everything in their power to try and shave off a few years. Like, if they could do, if they could do 5 years, that would be like, the best possible, plan for them. But I don't think Johnny Gaudreau is going to go for that. So I don't really know what they have to split the difference somehow. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised to see 6 or 7, but like 8 would be like, I think that would be a bad deal, because you really can't predict, anything past a few years. Even people were talking about Chris Tanev's contract. Like, they said, what's he going to be like in the last 2 years of that deal? Like, no one, like once you're on the other side of 30, it's really hard to predict a player's value and a player's performance. So, like, I would stay away from the super long if I could, but we'll see. Like, it could be a 6 or 7 year deal, which I think would make Johnny Gaudreau happy. I think the Flames would love a 5-year deal. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to see and see how much Johnny really does want to stay in Calgary. So
yeah. Well, let's go the other way. Let's assume that, okay, what happens is a trade scenario. What are your thoughts, Colton, on what the Flames, what's his market value out there? What could be coming back?
That really depends on, I guess, what they want to do. I think, like Greg said, I don't think they're interested in kind of blowing it up. So it would have to be a trade where I think you get a roster player that you think can help your team right away back. And I don't really like those trades generally, because I feel like teams don't usually win them. I feel if you have a guy that you feel like you have to get rid of, kind of like the Oilers when they got rid of like Hall for Larson, I just feel like those trades generally don't get the value back that people think they would. And I can't imagine Flames fans, you wouldn't be able to sell it to them too well that you traded their best player for picks and prospects. So I think it would be a roster player back, and I think it would be a really tough trade to win.
Yeah. So I guess what you're saying is the Flames believe their time is now. So you got to get a player back. Greg, you concur with that? No interest in picks and prospects, or a combination?
No, I think Colton is correct. I think you have to. I think you have to find a way to sign this guy because that the whole that Larson thing, kind of when you said that, Colton, it all came back to me, and that would be like a nightmare scenario. For like Gaudreau is a former like 90+ point player, and like I can't even think of out there right now like a 1-for-1 forwards who's even available, and I don't know if you can replace the offense with what's available out there. I think it's sign him or bust. I think it's hard to say what we would get back, and I don't think you want to risk that, because I don't like that possibility really. I'm hoping that they'll resign him to a pretty good fair deal, and maybe we'll get a hometown discount, but I don't know. I think 8.1 million is a number that I saw online yesterday. So hopefully they can get him around that for 5-6 years. That's my hope for this team.
Okay. Well, look, this is a nice segue into the next talking point. The expansion draft. I guess my question is, all right, who is untouchable here? I'd like to discuss that. And but before we start that, does anybody think that the Flames will not use the 7-3-1 method? Would they go to another method? Is it going to be 7-3-1? Can we assume that? Greg, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's what we've been hearing the whole time. I can't really think they're going to deviate from that. And this whole situation for of who they're going to protect, it became a whole lot interesting over the last few months, because when Sam Bennett was traded, like that was someone they had to make a decision on. Now that decision's gone because he's gone, and Milan Lucic made the bold statement that he was going to waive his that clause that would allow them not to expose him, so he's going to be exposed, and that was a big decision that's been taken out of their hands. And so when those two guys are off of the table, then really it's just, if you look at the Flames' 6 leading scorers, their 6 leading forwards, Gaudreau, Lindholm, Tkachuk, Mangiapane, Backlund, Monahan, it's just, and then Dubé, is the 7th in my mind. And there's really, it became, like I said, a lot less interesting and a lot less fun to speculate, because I can't see any other combination than that being chosen for the forwards. Now the defense is a different situation, because they have to make a big decision on Giordano, but even that's not even really a big decision, because he's really the only one that I think they should expose. So yeah, it's not as much fun to speculate as some other teams maybe who have more options to who they want to protect. I think it's pretty cut and dry here in Calgary.
Yeah. Colton, are you in the 7-3-1 square? Is that what they're going to adopt?
Yeah, I think generally for most teams, I think even in the Vegas one, there might have been the odd team, I can't recall for sure, that went the other way, but I think 7-3-1 for most teams seems to make the most sense. And yeah, like Greg said, everything I've been reading, I think it's pretty clear who they're going to protect, outside of maybe the blue line's a bit trickier. But yeah, I think the 7-3-1 makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll throw some names out there. I think you guys agree you're going to protect Tkachuk, Lindholm, Monahan, Gaudreau, Mangiapane, Backlund. For the 7th, I said Dubé, but I don't know. There's Phillips. I hate to lose him. Godden, I've got some optimism about. Phrase, not so much, but I don't know. Greg, what do? Do you protect Dubé or Phillips or Godden?
I think Dubé he kind of had an up and down season, and he was under some heat, from Daryl Sutter. He was a healthy scratch from time to time, but he did have career year, 11 goals, 11 assists in 51 games for 22 points. And that's the most he's ever done. And he's only still a young guy. I think he's only 22, I think. So it's like, I think there's a high ceiling on Dubé, and it's unfortunate he couldn't play in the World Championships, because that seemed to be a real spark for Mangiapane, because he did great there. So I think Dubé has to be the guy, and I think that's what I've been reading a lot. The other guys, they're just not as known quantities at this point, and I think Dubé, if he can curry favor with Daryl Sutter and kind of get in line with his system and get on the same page as Daryl Sutter, I think he'll be a pretty successful player for the Flames. So like I think Dubé is the seventh, and there might be some other guys to consider, and you might lose, a Godin or Matthew Phillips, but I think that's worth the risk, and I think Dubé is the guy to keep for that seventh slot. So.
What do you think, Colton? Would you concur with that? Dubé is the seventh protected one.
Yeah, I think not that he's proven by any means, but I think like Phillips is still. We really don't know kind of what he's going to bring. So I can't really even. I mean, maybe Seattle takes a chance on him, but I don't see that. I guess the thing I'd be a bit curious about, I'm kind of interested in your guys' thoughts, but on whether like is it a guarantee that Backlund gets protected for it? Like I'm wondering, just with his deal, I know he's in his 30s now. Like I'm curious, like is it a for sure thing? You guys think that he gets protected?
I've never really even considered Backlund, but his contract is it's not huge, but I just don't know how the Flames seem to rely on Backlund a lot. Like he's he can be the shutdown center, like he's been like a second line center pretty much de facto, and he's kind of multi-purpose. He's like a Swiss Army knife for this team. They can put him in any role that they want. So I just don't know if you want to lose a guy like that, but never really thought of Backlund being a possibility that he might be exposed. It's never say never. Like I would hate to lose him, because even though he is getting up there and his contract is not super friendly right now as he gets older, but I don't know. What do you think, Paul?
Say some more about that, Colton. Like you're thinking they could expose him, and the odds are low that Seattle would pick him up.
I think if they made him available, there's a chance that Seattle would take him. I just think it's a guy that's like, he hasn't shown that he's aging yet, but I mean, I don't know how many years he still has left on his deal, but I think there's still a few. Like, so it's a guy that, I mean, it frees up a decent amount of cap room, and just I don't know. I'm just curious if they really felt that they wanted to protect Phillips or whoever. I mean, the fact that they didn't play Phillips much this year means probably not, but just if they were really wanting to, like, I just feel like maybe that's the guy on that list that makes the most sense to leave exposed if there was someone under that core, quote unquote, core group.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd be leaning toward, if your view is that Calgary thinks their time is now, then you protect them. But if they're going to blow it up, sure. Just leaving the forwards, the seven protected forwards, I think we're probably violently agreeing on, for defense, Hanifin, Anderson, and Tanev. Any thoughts to the contrary? Leaving Giordano and Shillington exposed. Greg, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of chatter about it. People had asked the captain, Mark Giordano, in the year-end interviews and exit interviews about the chances of him going to being exposed, rather. And I think that's going to happen. I think whether they take a chance on an old guy like Giordano, or if they're really looking for leadership and a possible captain, maybe he's a good choice for that team. But I just don't know if they would take on that contract and his age and whatnot. So it's like, I think it's a good risk to expose Giordano, because he's still a good defenseman for this team. I think he's easily second pairing, and maybe the following season, maybe even be a third pairing. But I think it's a good risk for the Flames to expose him, because I think it's less than 50-50 that Seattle would take a chance on him. So like, I know that it's kind of hard to expose your team captain and team leader like this. And some might say, he's showing no loyalty to your captain, but this is a business, and I think they're looking to the future. So I think has to be the obvious choice. If Tanev didn't really have the season that he did, then I think he would be a candidate to expose. But he was the best defenseman the team had, and he was his first season playing like a full season, like like no injuries and everything. So I think that has to be the pick to be exposed. Giordano has to be the guy.
What do you think, Colton? Is Greg right, if I understood him correctly, that you can expose Giordano and you run a fairly low risk of actually losing him? Or
That's so tough. Just like, I guess it depends how Seattle views how they're going to be next year. Like, if they think they're going to come in and be a Vegas, then picking up Giordano with just 1 year left on his deal makes sense. But if they think they're going to have a slower start, then I think you maybe want to go with younger guys and kind of build from there. So I think they'll leave him exposed. Whether or not he gets claimed, it's so hard to say. I would probably lean towards no as well. But again, it kind of just depends with Flames management too. I think it's from all the things that you hear, it sounds like they're still viewing this as a window. But if they are deciding maybe to kind of restart, which I don't think they are, the Sutter hiring and everything, but that would kind of have you thinking maybe leaving Tanev would make a bit more sense. Just kind of, he's got the most term and everything like that. But I think, like Greg's alluded to, I think they still view this as a win now, or they want to continue to try and go for it here. So I think leaving Giordano exposed is what makes sense. And I think that'll happen. Whether or not he gets claimed, like I said, I'd lean towards no, but it's tough to say.
Yeah. So I'm going to go on a flyer here, way out there, and assume that we're all agreed we're going to protect Markstrom in net. No need to discuss anything more on that one. But speaking of the goaltending situation, I wrote an article this week on backup goalie options. It kind of built on an article Colton had done a month earlier, and in it, I guess my point was there's a great big hole that the Flames have got to fill this summer with their backup goaltending situation. And the argument was, I took a look at their existing options, third string Deming and big snag Zaggy Doolin, and Dustin Wolf said they weren't ready. They weren't really options. And then I took a look at some free agents on the market, and among them, I suggested David Riddick, Mike Smith, Devin Dubnyk, James Reimer, and Jonathan Bernier. Now, I posted this, of course, to social media, and the pushback I got, I was surprised. People were saying, no, you go with Wolf. He's your backup. I don't know. Thoughts on that, Colton? What did I miss here? And then somebody else said, well, what about Parsons? So I don't know. Your thoughts on backup? Would you go with Wolf? I wouldn't, but
no, yeah. He's like, he hasn't really, he got a little bit of time obviously in the AHL this year, but he's still so young. You don't want to rush a guy in like that, especially too, like, you could get him in the minors playing, getting a lot of starts and develop him, where, like we've said, Markstrom's the guy in Calgary for now. He's going to get the bulk majority of the starts. Doesn't do Wolf any favors to play 15, maybe 20 games a year. And like, we still, obviously his career to this point, it looks like he's going to be like the next star goalie in Calgary, but there's still a long ways to go. Like, he's only 20 years old right now, I think. So a lot of things could still happen. So I think you would give him time in the AHL, at least this next season, perhaps a couple, I think, just to really get his feet wet. And then as far as Parsons, I don't think he's really showed a ton to prove, like, in the AHL that he's backup goalie capable. I think, I mean, maybe he has a great start to the season next year and can earn his way on that, but you don't want to bank on that going into training camp. So they definitely need to look in the free agency pool this year, or a trade, whatever it may be. But yeah, they'll have to find a backup because Wolf's not that guy.
I don't know. Your take on that, Greg? Did I sell Wolf and Parsons short?
No. Well, Parsons, I understand, didn't even hardly play this season. I think he was injured a lot of it, so he hasn't really made his mark at all and put himself on the radar. But it's funny about Wolf. I think some of the fans who are kind of pushing back and telling you, "Oh, go with Wolf," is sometimes it does happen. Like, you remember Hart in Philadelphia. Yeah. I don't know how old he was when he started playing. They really kind of fast tracked that kid, and I think he might have been 20 years old when he started playing games for the Flyers. But that is rare. Like, the goalies, they seem to take a long time to develop and to really cook. Like, they didn't want to send a guy out to the league who's undercooked, I guess. But I think that Wolf shows great promise. Like, but he also just a kid. He's a skinny guy. He needs to fill out a bit, kind of get Like, he's not a big guy to begin with. He's not tall. A lot of goalies now are like 6'5", and he's not that. He's like, I think 6 feet, I think. So he's undersized for a goalie. So no, I think those two are not options, and I've been hearing more about people. So if Riddick, if Big Save Dave is, wants to come back and play 20 games a year or something, I think to me, that's still your best bet. I think everyone knows this guy, and he's capable of being pretty solid at times and even going on hot streaks at times. He's not number one. I think he's proven that. He seems to always lose the starting job when he gets the chance. So, but I think he would be, if he's amicable, if he wants to do it and be a full-time backup to Markstrom, then I think Riddick is your best option in Calgary.
Yeah. Well, let's stay with goaltending. Greg, you wrote an article this week. You graded Jacob Markstrom. You gave him you're a tough marker. You gave him a B-, and then even suggested that, you know what, he may not be the solution to Calgary's goaltending situation long term. I thought that was a real contrarian view. What kind of pushback did you get on social media on that?
Well, I think some people thought it was being unfair because he was injured. But the thing is, I was just grading him on his games played, and he did miss a couple of weeks. And maybe that concussion stayed with him longer than he kind of let on and everything. But there was that stretch in the middle there. He had a great start and a great finish. But I think the Flames were counting on this guy to be like steady Eddie. They wanted him to be, the guy who could carry the team, like Kiprusoff used to do back in the day. I think that's what they're hoping for, that kind of performance. And he just didn't really deliver that. Like, there was a good chunk of the season where he just was not. And concussion or not, he was still playing these games, and maybe he shouldn't have been playing these games if he wasn't really ready. But the Flames probably felt that they had to play Markstrom because they were always behind the 8 ball, always playing catch up, and they always needed their best goalie to kind of be their best goalie. So I thought B- was a decent grade. Like, I don't know, he would need to have played solid from start to finish to get an A or anything close to an A. So I stand by my grade, and I'm happy to take anyone on who says otherwise. So, all
right, Colton. Well, you are a goaltender. Was Greg too tough on him? I mean, would you have cut him a little more slack than a B-?
If anything, I thought Greg was generous. I thought I thought just like the dollars and everything they gave him, and he was expected to. He is still expected to be one of the best goalies in the league. I mean, they paid him like such, and his overall numbers this season weren't they were quite below average compared to throughout the rest of the league. So I think inconsistent play. And like you said, the injury and everything, I'm giving him a pass. Obviously, I think next year he'll be fine, but I don't think he was nearly as good as what management was hoping they were getting when they signed him last offseason.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to close off on an article you wrote, Colton, this week. The Flames playoff drought is likely to be short-lived due to the Flames going back to a weak division. And you really went out on a limb. Full marks for you there. You predicted next year in the Pacific Division, the Flames will come in third spot. Any closing thoughts on that? You want to put any qualifiers on it?
It's the only tough one, I guess, again, and I said it in the article too, is picking where Seattle goes. They're such a wild card, because I know everyone's predictions, mine included, when Vegas came in the league, was they're going to be the worst team, expansion team. And so Seattle's a huge wild card. They could come in, they could play like Vegas, but I think the only two guarantees in that division, I think Vegas and Edmonton will probably be the top two teams again, assuming Seattle's not there. And then, I think the Flames really are. It's a weak division, so the Canucks could bounce back a bit too, but I think the Flames are the third best team on paper in that division right now.
All right. As long as you know that we're going to revisit this next year about this time.
Of course,
Well, anyway, gentlemen, great discussion as always. I really enjoyed it, but unfortunately we've run out of time. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We got a reduced schedule this summer for another edition of the Flames Faceoff. And in the meantime, though, you can subscribe to the show on YouTube. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Give us a couple of likes on YouTube and Facebook. And do be sure to share this with your fellow Calgary Flames fans. And be sure to check out all the great hockey content that we have here at thehockeywriters.com. See you in a couple of weeks. Take care.